Vinaka. Welcome, everybody.
I got you.
Nisambola Vinaka, Muchudola Vina, Durumai, Durumai, Durumai. It's lovely to be amongst you today. Our sharings today are going to be offered in 2 sessions, which are part of each other, just like we all are. And the first session is through story and song with myself and my mystic sister Gail. And the second part is a talking circle with my sister Tessa. So the first part of the session is live streamed, and the second part is private for participants only. And you're all welcome to hang back with us and explore some themes from the story. The story that I'll share is part of my story. It's part of her story that is transmuting within history or his story. And this sharing is being made possible through a willingness to see, to feel, and to bear the wounding. And it's big for me. And the reason that I'm able to sit here and share this is because of my sisterhood that's present. And I'm deeply grateful for them who showed up within their own stories. And as our paths crossed, we begin to weave new stories that first unraveled the past for us. And so I'd like to allow this space to introduce them. Gail dances with Forbes Thomas and Sasa. So Gail, if you would kindly come forward. Oh, we can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Thank you. My name is Galigia Kawaskwe, and my Salagi homeland translates as Dancing Heron Dances with Death. I'm in the French Broad River Basin, Wayumi, Ganaita, and I'm on the sacred mountain who's getting her original Salagi name back. Her name is Adagul, and it means helping many people. And we are in ceremony. We've lit our sacred fire for our sweat lodge traditional Nipi ceremony. And we're very happy to share that fire with you today. And our dogs and our friends and our community. This song came when we all came together just a couple of months ago. It came in the dream world, and it showed our women's circle. Tessa and Sasa and I all met when we were training to be talking circle leaders. And then about 30 of us women all over the world, mostly indigenous, came together in a women's circle to meet once a week and share our deep feelings in only ways that come up in talking circles. And then the 3 of us found that we had a sisterhood, that we just were drawn to each other, that we are of a similar human pattern. My specialization in Jungian psychology from Switzerland has a lot of study of the archetypal human patterns. And we 3, and probably the people here with me today, and a lot of you, are the mystic sage pattern with the roots of our archetypal patterns. And the roots are those patterns that we keep throughout our lives, and we recognize each other. The leaves come and go like they do on the trees. You know, the minor archetypal patterns will fall and be replaced, come again, different stages and different times in our lives, but our roots are always in the same place. And the mystic sage pattern in our culture has not been honored recently for a long time. And this song says that we miss our ancestors and our matrilineal ways. And it showed our women's circle gathering on horseback in the snow, white horses and white shawls and white blankets, all regathering in the dream. And then the line that first came was, "We know they miss you, sweet lady." And then vocables from there translate as, "We are birthing back our ways in the dream world. We call in a new day with these vocables in the Salaki language. A new day that is grounded to the sacred mountains." And then the line in the song came up from years ago when I first met Tessa in the dream world. A line came about learning to weep. And that's part of what she's teaching us today. We need to weep as we birth in a new day. And when the time is right, we'll sing the song. I'm here with Noah Proudfoot on the flute made by Hawk Henry's, and Cam Boland is gonna play the rattle for us, and Andrea Victoria and friends are gonna sing with us, and hopefully the dog won't sing with us, but we'll be here when Tessa's ready for the song, and I'll pass this to Sasa. She can share her experience of us. Thank you.
Thank you, my lovelies. I'm Sasa. I live in the mountains of Washington State. Mount Baker is a volcano. I live at the convergence of a few rivers, the Sauk River, the Seattle, the Cascade, and the Skagit. And the Skagit flows down Salish Sea, where it joins the sea where our ancestor orcas live there year round. And I'm here today when we do our talking circle, infusing all of our feelings, our emotions, our intentions into this mandala. And then I'm going to take it to our beloved Skagit River, which means refuge. And I'm going to offer it with song. I am so honored to be here. I feel like, and it's so beautiful because I just started shining my light. Yeah, I just started sharing my heart, and it's just so beautiful and synchronistic how we found each other, and then the opportunities started to blossom and to share our feelings. I think we all got the intellectual intelligence down, but the emotional intelligence is something that we feel very strongly is needed in the world today. How do we work through what we're going through? How do we support this one? How do we support this environment as we go through these changes, as we learn these very valuable, valuable lessons that teach us in the world, how to live in our reality and walk in a gentle and unite. So I feel I'm looking forward to connecting with you all, and I turn to story, and we listen with an open heart and strong roots, Tessa, and we hold you as you share your heart.
Thank you, Sasa. Thank you, Gail. So, the story I share is about this place. This place here. When I first came to this place, not that long ago, 12 years or so, I would walk out, wade out into the ocean, and at about knee deep, schools of baby black-tip sharks would approach us. And it was a beautiful space where we felt safe and they felt safe. And so they would come and play, and they would swim amongst us and weave through our legs before they went on their way. And as time went by, their numbers began to dwindle, and they got fewer and fewer. And then one day, I came to know that a little school of about 6 or 4 of them were netted by locals. I don't see them so much anymore. And when I do, they keep their distance. I would too. And I began to notice other changes along this stretch. This is quite a unique shoreline. In this space, we've got great big boulders that have been spewed out during the forming of these lands. And they all push up against the hillside, creating like a fort, a protected area. And on either side are 2 rivers, the Mbulu River and the Sobi River. And so the landscape is varied. We go from black sands to golden sands made by coral and shell, to black sand again, caused by the flowing rivers. So nature is always changing with time, shape-shifting by the elements, by the seasons. And these are beautiful changes, morphing with life. However, I began to notice other changes, these ones rapid and alarming. And in one spot where our community take their mbilimbili bamboo rafts out into the water to fish for food, collect shellfish. Along this space were piles of once colorful coral and all sorts of marine organisms left to bleach in the sun. And these were growing by the day, quicker than we could get to them to try and get them back into their watery homes. So I made it my thing to stake out the place and watch. How is this coming into being? And what I saw shook me to my very core. Let me backtrack a little here. I live up on a hill up there, and from my home I can look out against this great expanse of Pacific Ocean. I watch the sun rise and set, and the move travel across the sky, reflected upon the waters. And on any given day, at the right tide, I would see my people coming up, gliding across glassy, crystal clear waters, and going out to the fringing reef to collect food for their families, their community. And I would relish the sight, seeing my people and feeling the abundance of the ocean and how we are sustained by this force and how lucky we are to be so close to her. She that sustains us through food and medicine, for travel, for prayer, for play. She's very much part of our lives. And I always thought how blessed I am to be here and to be part of this. But what I saw that day, that beautiful picture that I had painted, came crashing down around me. Bilimbili craft or bamboo rafts. Travel with what's known as a kara, a great long big pole. And it doesn't go out into very deep water, so you're able to move yourself along with these poles and the tides. So what I saw were my people out there, and what I thought was the kara moving was something quite different, because their motion was not one of moving them along. It was a violent motion. And as they moved, I saw these piles grow and grow on their bilimbili. And I thought, there's no way that they could be collecting shellfish this fast, because these pyramids would grow on their rafts And the more I looked, the clearer it became exactly what was happening. The movement was a crashing and a bashing, and these great big chunks coming out of the ocean, placed upon the rafts. And I realized that this was not a sustainable collection of practice. What this was the very rape and pillage of the building blocks of this reef. And that realization struck me right in the belly. And I felt it through all of my lives. And I felt it through the life of this very planet. The pillage of this telluric realm that holds us. And these actions brought upon the mother by her very children.
You know they'll miss you, lady. You know my salagi, baby. Hey, oh, and they oh, hey. You know they'll miss you, sweet ladies. You know my salary, baby. And they are, oh, and they are, oh, hey, way higher, oh, hey, higher, oh, hey, how precious is that golden hour we first learned to be. That precious golden hour we first learned to be. Lord, I miss you, sweet lady. You know my salary, baby. You know so well. You know so well. You know so well. You know I miss you, sweet lady. You know my salary, baby. You know, you know so well. You know so well. You know so well. You know I miss you, sweet lady. my Jalagi baby.
And I made it my thing to find out absolutely everything about this. And the first thing that came to light was that this was legal activity. And it was very much part of the economic growth of our islands. And it serviced a trade to America for the aquarium business. And this practice back then had been prevalent for some 35 years. So that the coastal communities had become reliant upon it. And almost everybody's father and grandfather did it or had done it. And it became something that was passed on. This place is known as the Coral Coast. These precious little coral here now. So I had been doing work in communities and that's my work. And so I was known in these places. And I set about trying to, in my own way, to bring about an awareness of why this activity needed to stop. And you can imagine, I became quite unpopular. But I did try, and seeing that it was a source of livelihood, it was income that fed families, I set about, through my own line of work, to rekindle lost skills and bring back a remembrance into activities that were done in the past by the grandmothers and the mothers, of crafting. And it wasn't like I was teaching them anything new. I was simply reminding them of what they already knew, but had simply forgotten. However, this approach didn't quite work. But I couldn't let it go. It was tearing me apart, watching this happen on a daily basis. It became an obsession where I would spend hours along the beach just watching them, torturing myself. And these rocks were, as I mentioned, the building blocks of our reef. They were live rock, coral substrate, beautiful colors, pinks, purples, lime green, electric blue. But to fit the box with a certain market, they had to be a certain size and a shape. So maybe about half of them would be discarded, and this is what littered the beach. And within each rock, a dozen or so organisms left to bleach with the sunlight. And as days went by, they would lose their colors, turning from vibrant hues into pastels, and then eventually all white, like bones, the bones of our reefs. And the beach became a graveyard. And I, the keeper of this place. And as time went by, the closer I looked at these fragments of once living homes, I began to notice beauty in them, in the spirals of the burrowing organisms and the starbursts where the polyps once inhabited. And I began to create with them. And I also began to collect them and haul them up to my house, much to my husband's horror. And I made things out of them from other discarded materials. And what I made them to float, and I would set them out into a path where when the Billy rafts came up, they would have to navigate around them. And this was like therapy for me. But I knew that the change would be slow. So again, I went back to the village and sought audience with the chief and his merrymen. And it got to a stage where they ended up banning me from the village. And my hut got burnt. And my marriage became quite rocky because I just couldn't let it go. I knew there was another way. There had to be. I continued to create, and I made a series that I called Sea Gems, and they were a prayer asking for forgiveness. And I set them out in the ocean to float as well as to sink. And I tied them to rocks and to bommies. And I knew that when the miners came out, they would see them. And see them they did. And a lot of them got bashed with those same big poles. So I went back to the village and I sought audience again. And this time I invited the chief and his merrymen to this beach. And when they came, I served them food, a delicacy of this place. And you see, in the islands, food plays a big part in our culture. And when you're inviting hierarchy like your chief, you would put on a spread. However, this delicacy that was once abundant was here no more. And so I had to serve them in very little portions, little coconut bowls. And after they'd eaten, the spokesman said to me, "Tessa, why you do this? Why you call us here with no kava ceremony? You feed us such small portions. Because are you not ashamed?" And I said, "The fish that I prepared, I had to buy because they aren't here anymore. His anger was still there, but something changed in his eye. And while he didn't say anything, I saw it. It was fear. The reason that I had called them was that I wanted to have a little space, just here, where I could put my sea gems, my therapy, my prayer, my offering, and have it safe. The chief then got up and said, "Okay, what is it? What can I do for you?" And I told him what I wanted. And in my mind, my intention had been just a small space, maybe 10 square meters at most. And he got up like this, and he looked this way, and he looked that way. And he goes, "Where?" Oh. So I thought, okay, go for it now. So I said, "From that creek to that creek." And he looked at me impatiently and said, "Okay, do it." They couldn't wait to leave. I was ecstatic. I'd gotten more than I had bargained for. So this happened 6 years after I had begun my work to create tambu in this area. Tambu meaning sacred, no take song. And to celebrate this, we had a gathering with women. And I marked the space out using plastic gallons and rope. So that the miners didn't come anywhere near here, but their activity continued on the outskirts of the tambu zone. I felt, however, that this was quite an achievement. And so in the next coming months was World Water Day. And my community were aware of what I was doing. Community being ones that are active in the marine field, as well as local community. And I sort of earned myself a reputation as being a bit of a mad person because I couldn't let this go. But so coming up to World Water Day, I invited everybody down to celebrate this achievement of the Tambu zone. And so leading up to the time when people were to arrive, I came down to the beach. And there wasn't much preparations to be done because it's already beautiful here. And everyone was just to bring some water and fruit and simple baked goods, whatever they felt they could bring. And I bought what I made, came down to the beach, and it was a beautiful day. Clear blue skies, still water, so still that you couldn't see a divide between the sky and the sea. It was perfect. And I waited for folks to arrive, just enjoying the scene. And I waited. And waited. And nobody came. I didn't understand it. And I felt quite crushed and alone. And so I took my offerings down to the sea, placed them in the water. And the fish came. And some fruit floated. And maybe I cried. And then I looked down, and as my tears dropped into the water, they caused ripples. It was quite beautiful. And I thought about my salty tears reuniting with the ocean. And then suddenly I noticed that the ocean was looking back at me. and I was being seen. The whole surface, for as far as I could see, were little round blue eyes. All looking back at me. And I knew, and I felt that was all that mattered. And my work was being done. And you know what it's like when you see something quite fantastic. You want somebody else to see it too, so that it's not a figment of your imagination. So I quickly ran up to my house and I called somebody down, my son. I wanted him to see and to show me that I wasn't imagining it, even though I felt it to be true. And he came and he saw what I had seen. However, by then, all the little eyes were being washed up onto the shore, and they were starting to dissolve into the sand. So we quickly ran to pick them up and take them back out to the ocean. But it was too late. They were all just disintegrating and melting into the sea or into the sand. I later came to know that these organisms are a type of jellyfish that never really come here. And I was so grateful to feel that and know that through my feelings, through my willingness to see, to feel, and to bear that wounding, I was fulfilling my role as a participatory creator of my world. Good. We are now another 6 years on, 7 in fact, and coming up to this present time with the pandemic, we are not unaffected by that. Many have lost jobs. This is a tourism area of the island. And so many people are taking to the Tambu zone for food. And I don't do anything to stop them. But I know that now, more than ever, there is great importance to keep something sacred, to create that abundance that once was. And just a couple of years ago, they sent somebody up from the village. This was 10 years on from when I first started work to bring awareness on the importance of maintaining the balance of nature. And he came up and very casually he said, "We've stopped." And a couple of days later, there was a little article, just a few lines, to say that live rock harvest had become illegal. And while it went unacknowledged, I knew that I'd played a part in it. And I will, at some stage this year, reenact this zone as a sacred site that feeds the abundance of that our oceans once were, as the great sustaining force of our lives, ever abundant. I want to show you a little bit more. And you know something else? The sharks are coming back. Slowly, but surely, they are returning. As we are returning, and remembering to our magnificence as creators of our world. Thank you for listening, for being part of my little journey, and I hope that it has touched you in a part where your own feelings and your own emotions, your own inklings and knowings are given space to rise to the surface, to be seen and felt, and to be the teachers that we need to realize this and to emphasize this. Naka. I'd like to see you. Ah, there you are. Thank you. So, oh wow, my timing. Amazing. You can, if there's anybody who has any questions at all before we take a break. I think we might have lost Tessa
there for a moment. Oh, Tessa, you back?
I'm here.
We're frozen for just a moment here. Did you want us to go offline now?
Yes, that's fine. Yep, we can go offline and